Off the back of my Why You Might Want a Server video, I was asked to explain how to make a server, so I'll do you one better. I'll explain how to make two. Before we begin, let's briefly go over the basics. Don't overthink what a server is. Hardware-wise, a server is just another computer. While you can get specialised hardware for it, it's not always needed. If you have any old laptops, a crappy old PC, or a spare Raspberry Pi, then you can make a server. Let's get straight into it. We will start with a small, simple server, running on a Raspberry Pi. Here I have SSH and a spare Raspberry Pi 4, because no one can afford them new anymore. I've flashed Raspberry Pi Lite OS since we don't need a GUI too. First, update and upgrade with this command, which I've already done here, so then we can install Docker with this command. Docker is your best friend for servers and really streamlines the process. It also allows you to easily run multiple services. Using Docker, we will be running Trillium Notes. Trillium Notes is my favourite note-taking app, with Markdown support and a wiki organisation style. When installed on a server, it will provide us with a website that we can use to write with, or we can sync it with local app installation. We will use this command to run it. -p is used to specify what ports we want it to run on. The -v is used to specify where it will store its files. And by setting the restart policy to always, it means that even if the Raspberry Pi is rebooted, then the container will start when the Raspberry Pi boots. Since we haven't pulled the image before, Docker will automatically go out and download it and then start running it. Now if we go to the IP address of the Pi, which you can find with this command in a different terminal, then follow it with a colon and the port number that you chose, you'll be greeted with this page. We can now select New User, create our password, and log in. You can also see when I reboot the Raspberry Pi, the website will lose connection briefly. However, once the Pi boots back up, I'm able to reconnect to the website again. With our basic server done, I'll explain what you can do to create a larger and more powerful server. As previously mentioned, a server can run on pretty much any kind of computer. There are two main things to consider though. The first is RAM. Like any computer, the more RAM you have, the more processes you can run at the same time. Since servers don't generally need a GUI, it does save on RAM, but the more the better. That's not to say you can't do a lot with a little. My own server has 16GB of RAM, and while that does mean my net worth has tripled in the last 6 months, it also means my server is capable of running about 20 to 25 services at the same time, including a couple of RAM-intensive services like Image or Jellyfin. The second thing to consider is a GPU. If you're running a server without a GUI, which I would recommend, then you don't really have any need for a GPU, and your server will still run with no issues. The only downside of this is if any of your services do a lot of image or video encoding, then this job will be placed on the CPU, which is quite intensive, so plan accordingly. With that said, if you only plan on having 2 or 3 people using services like Jellyfin, then a decent CPU should be able to handle this. With all that in mind, here's what I'd recommend doing. Grab any hardware you want, that old, cheap PC, your parents' old laptop. If it can run Windows, then it can run Linux, and if it can run Linux, then it can be a server. As for what OS you use, I'd recommend anything that is headless, which simply means it doesn't come with a GUI. Or use a dedicated server OS, such as TrueNAS, Unraid, or Proxmox. For more information on those OSs, I explain them a bit better in my Why You Might Want a Server video. Now grab a USB stick. Use Balena Etcher, Rufus, or Ventoy to get your OS on your USB stick. With your hardware and OS chosen, plug your USB stick into your hardware and boot into the BIOS of the device. Select the USB stick as your boot device and install. Keep in mind that unless you're dual booting, it will delete all data from your device. With that, you have built your own server. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments. Thank you all for watching, please like and subscribe.